Welcome to the Liberated Equestrian Podcast and community. This is a place for horsewomen to experience belonging, breakthrough, and becoming. I'm your host, Lisa Pulliam, founder of StableMinded.us, mental health professional, second season equestrian, and author of Finding Calm, helping riders navigate through fear and anxiety. The Liberated Equestrian is devoted to the mission of being set free and experiencing breakthroughs in every aspect of our horsemanship and humanship. This is all about mind, body, heart, and soul care for ourselves, our horses, and the people we do life with, so that we can grow together as a community of emotionally and relationally healthy horsewomen. So find a comfortable spot, take a deep breath, and let's embark on this journey of becoming liberated equestrians together. I am excited to have on this podcast today Leigha Schrader, who began her journey with horses in 2009 as a volunteer for Days End Farm Horse Rescue in Howard County, Maryland, which is a nationally recognized 58-acre facility for abused and neglected horses seized by animal protection and law enforcement agencies. At the time, she had no horse experience, but she did have a desire to learn and big goals to achieve. In 2013, she started interning at Days End under head trainer Sarah Strauss, and under Sarah's guidance and extensive experience, she started training and working with the horses in Days End's care. In 2016, Leigha was hired on as a horse trainer to join the team professionally, and as part of her role, she also assists with adoptions, deploys with Days End emergency response team, and showcases horses at shows and events. I first met Leigha at the Horse World Expo in Pennsylvania, which I talk about all the time. She was doing a Liberty demonstration and really powerful education on positive reinforcement. She specializes in colt starting as well as trick work. And she shows horses on the local and A-rated hunter jumper circuits. Her goal is finding balance in all areas of horsemanship, which I witnessed in her work. I am excited to have Leigha here with us today. Welcome, Leigha. Thanks for joining us on location.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Lisa.
Yeah, so you are not actually at Days End today. You are traveling, you said, to Texas. What's happening in your world?
Yeah, so I'm actually on my way back from Texas. We've been traveling for the past 3 days, delivering 2 horses to a sanctuary down in Texas called Black Beauty Ranch, which is run by the Humane World for Animals. So we were taking 2 horses down there. So we do not currently have horses on the trailer, which is why I was able to pull over at a local park and talk with you today. But the horses settled in great. But it was just a long drive. It's a 21-hour drive down to Texas from our facility in Maryland.
That is a long drive. I often wonder the capacity and resiliency of horses to be able to hop on a box on wheels and be taken someplace else and, acclimate, some better than others, which I'm sure you've seen every variety of that in your years at Days End.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. We try to make it as, quick as possible so that they're not under stress for too long, but also making sure we balance it with giving them breaks along the way to rest their legs, because it's quite exhausting to be traveling in a trailer for that long.
Yeah, I would imagine. So what did that look like for a break for them on this past trip? I'm curious about that.
So we actually have we have a box stall horse trailer, so that the horses each actually had their own box stalls in the trailer. Specifically, the horses that we were taking down were horses that we did not think it would be good for them to actually get off of the trailer and stop at an actual horse farm or property, which is why we made sure that when we were trailering them, we had a box stall for them. So that way it was just as if they were in a stall. That way we could stop, make sure they had plenty of hay and water for the night, and gave them a quick rest overnight and then carried on the next day. So we only had one overnight stop at a hotel that they hung out in the box stalls. And then throughout the trip during the day, we would also stop half an hour here, half an hour there, just to give their legs a break.
Yeah, so that the rocking and rolling, they could just be on solid ground for a
Yeah.
few minutes at a time. That makes
Yes.
sense. Yeah, actually, I never even thought about that as a possibility, but you did make the decision for what was in the best interest of the horses. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I would love for you to tell the Liberated Equestrian audience what your experience has been like in terms of horses and getting into it. I mean, I read a little bit about that in your bio, gave kind of the brief version of that, but kind of tell us your story of like, how did you end up where you are today?
Yeah, so like I said in my bio, I did start volunteering at Day's End when I was just 12 years old, and I had zero horse experience when I started volunteering there. It was pretty clear from the beginning that I knew that this is what I wanted to do for the rest of my life.
Mhm.
Um, just a few months after I started volunteering, I wanted to take it a step further, and I started riding lessons at a local barn. And I really wanted to stay connected with the rescue, specifically staying connected with Days End Farm. So I kind of had a goal in my heart that I wanted to be on their training team of volunteers. So I specifically wanted to help with the training, and that was something that I wanted to do from a very young age. So I worked very hard to get to that point, and I was offered an internship position when I was a senior in high school. And then I ended up continuing on helping the training department through college. So a lot of my school was done either locally or online so that I could continue working with the trainers that I was already kind of established with and working with and continue my education there. I decided to go to school for business, so a little bit different than horses, but it's neat how it can apply
Mhm.
in different areas of your career. So that way, staying local and doing school online, I was able to keep horses a huge focus as well during my schooling.
I love that. I think it's a great illustration of how, as a horse person, we're multifaceted. Horses are part of our life.
Hmm.
They can be what we do in our career, and yet we can also study something dramatically different and do other work. So you've continued your development, training, working at Liberty with horses, working with the rescues. Which is your favorite aspect in terms of working with the horses?
Oh, what is my favorite aspect? Anything with horses is my favorite aspect, I get, but I
Yeah.
do definitely love working at Liberty and showcasing at Liberty, specifically the rescue horses. I think it's just such an amazing way to tell their stories in a unique
Mhm.
and memorable way that we can bring our mission at Days End Farm out into the community by showcasing horses at Liberty and showing basically their story within this 5-minute performance timeline. I think it's a really beautiful way to tell their stories.
Yeah, yeah. What I love about it and love about Liberty and love about Rescue and that combination is that it is a story of the repair of a rupture. And so,
Hmm.
as a mental health professional, I'm working with people who are struggling often with attachment wounds or betrayal trauma or abuse or something that on the relational level they've been wounded, and yet their way through that wounding needs to be relational healing, maybe not with the individual that they suffered that pain from, although that would be, a beautiful outcome, but just being able to trust other humans and being able to even trust themselves and being able to make decisions about relationships. And so when I see the picture of Liberty between a rescue horse and a human, to me, I cry every time because it is a picture of restoration where trust has been built and communication is now kind and clear and confidence. Like it's just an amazing picture. And I don't know if what that's been like for you in both the parallels of like your life experience, what has your life been like personally, whatever you want to share, and then also working with the
Hmm.
horses.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're just such incredible animals, the amount that they're able to let go and live in the present.
Mhm.
I was recently talking to someone about working with rescue horses and this idea that uh, it's more difficult to work with a rescue horse because of the trauma that they've been through. And I've worked with so many rescue horses that uh, are really able to move past that. And the way in which we work with our horses, if we're not able to be present, they're not able to be present. And that's
Right.
what they want. They desire their people, their humans, to be present with them so that they
Mhm.
can move forward as well, just as much as we move forward. So, I mean, it's a great lesson for us,
Yeah.
especially, like growing up as a young professional in the horse industry. You really do have to learn to put everything aside when you're working with horses and say, like, I'm working with this horse right now, and moving forward, I'm going to make your life the best it possibly can be from this point moving on. So I try
Mhm.
not to dwell on their past, whether they come from a neglect situation or an abuse situation, whether they have negative associations with humans or they don't know what humans are. I try to just take that moment in the present and move forward from there.
Oh, that's beautiful. And it's like what you're saying about horses being in the present moment and really wanting our presence in the moment. That's what I see in the equine assisted sessions I do with clients.
Mm-hmm.
I work with probably presently I work with about a dozen different horses in like a core group of like 4 or 5. And some of them I don't know anything about their past. Some
Mm-hmm.
I do. Uh, but the reality was I wasn't even there. So it's a kind of irrelevant what I perceive it to be because they can't actually
Yeah.
tell me. And what I discover is that when a client gets really honest about how they're feeling and they either allow the tears to come or sometimes the frustration and anger to come or they just become very present in this moment, the horses lean into it almost all the time. Unless it's this really big
Mm-hmm.
dysregulated anger, then they will like kind of hold their space over there. But they are drawn into, are you here with me now? As
Mm-hmm.
opposed
Yes.
to the demand to do something for me, um, or the affect on the outside does not match what's happening on the inside.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And some of the most special relationships I've had with horses are the ones where it starts out as myself helping the horse to get through something, some form of trauma, and then all of a sudden there's this like point in which the relationship switches, and
Yes.
then all of a sudden they're helping me get through what I'm going through in my own life.
Yes. Yeah. No, that's a story of me and Cody, my horse. So, we haven't had a chance to talk about it. Most of the listeners know about Cody's story. So he's now 15. I've had him 2.5 years. I adopted him from Omega Horse Rescue, which is another local rescue. He had been abandoned and pretty much neglected for 7 years. And he had raced until he was 5 and was sent to slaughter. And then that's when that abandonment rescue came. So basically, I ended up
Mm-hmm.
with this, green horse with a whole lot of life and a whole lot of association with things. And he is not typical thoroughbred in that he's not really a hothead. Um, he's not really spooky. He's not like a bundle of energy, except if he's anxious. um, and and I've had to work at building trust with him. And I used positive reinforcement with food because he's very food motivated, which I often think is a byproduct of the years of neglect. And so,
Mm-hmm.
and I'd be curious to see if you've experienced that. So I've used positive reinforcement with food with him. And in that process of helping him learn how to trust and be confident in various situations, he has taught me how to slow down and how to listen and how to notice my body and how to talk less with my words and say more with my thoughts and find like he's taught me that less is more in a
Yes.
in the way we are. I mean, it's amazing. It's been
Yeah.
amazing. So I know exactly what you're saying on that flip of I do for you, but when did this turn around and you're actually now doing this for me?
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Is there a particular horse that comes to mind?
So the horse that you saw at the Horse World Expo was Zillow, who
Yes.
is a 20-year-old Pinto pony who came to our rescue as a neglect case seized by animal control out in Ohio. It was a case facilitated by the Humane World for Animals, and it was uh, between 15 and 20 horses. They were all locked in a barn for years. They were standing atop feet-high piles of their own waste. They had to kind of be dug out of their stalls. Most of the horses had really severe hoof neglect, really bad slipper feet. Unfortunately, when the owner of the horses, the original owner of the horses, got wind that animal control was getting involved with the case, they went through the barn and chopped off all of the slipper feet. But there is a process, right? When you're correcting that severe hoof neglect, he chopped them off far too short, and unfortunately most of the horses foundered and did not survive. So Zillow was incredibly lucky, fortunate to even make it out of there alive, but also just had a really negative association with humans when I started working with him. I went into his training thinking, if we can just make him comfortable as a non-riding companion horse, I would be happy if we can just find him a good retirement home. But his behaviors were pretty aggressive. He would kick out anytime you touched his legs or his feet. The first time that I worked with him, he actually bolted away from me and jumped a fence. So that self-preservation wasn't always there, which is that's a big thing when you're working with horses and being able to keep both of you safe. And I started working with him. Obviously, I do use a lot of positive reinforcement work with my training as well, and started getting him to a point where he started trusting me. In the middle of my work with him, I actually had a amazing Liberty partner named Vinny the Mini, who a lot of people also saw at Horse World Expo every year for many years, and we performed all over the country together at Liberty. And he had his own story of overcoming neglect himself. And I unfortunately lost him in September of the year that I started working with Zillow. So that was 2 years ago now. And I was working with Zillow at the time, which it was crushing to me. He was only 5 years old and wasn't expected. He ended up actually we did a necropsy when he passed, and he had a gastrointestinal defect that he most likely developed because of the neglect he suffered while he was still growing. So he came into Days End Farm originally when he was a yearling. So he was still growing when his body was going through that neglect. He had horrible parasitism. And the vets believe that because of the neglect that he suffered while he was still growing, something didn't develop properly in his GI system. And basically it leaked, burst. He went into septic shock right away. And it was comforting that he did not suffer, but it didn't make it any less difficult that, I had his whole life planned out. We had so much to look forward to, and it felt like everything was being ripped away from me at that point in my life. My identity was like on the chopping board. It felt like I didn't know who I was anymore, because he was my main Liberty partner, and he was the one I could hide behind. He was a very vibrant life that I never got nervous performing with him, or he taught me not to be nervous when performing with him, because he always took the center stage of any ring that he stepped into. But anyway, I was working with Zillow a few weeks after Vinny's passing, and we were just working in the round pen when he all of a sudden just started coming in and offering these beautiful Liberty circles. And I don't know how to describe, I just knew that that was that moment where I was like, you're now carrying me through this. And I was vulnerable with Zillow in that I was struggling, and I, was very, you have to keep working. You have to keep going out and working with horses when you're a professional horse trainer. And I was like, yeah, like I'm struggling right now. And he kind of just took me in and was like, you can still help other horses. And I feel like Vinny was there helping as well, in some way or form.
Yeah. No, gosh, it's making me cry. I've worked with quite a few clients recently on grief and the loss of their horse.
Mm.
In some cases, the loss of a parent, and these overlapping losses that happen in our life that blindside us and cause us to feel really overwhelmed. And yet the expectation is always you put your next foot in front of the other, your next hoof, and you keep on moving on and find the next thing. But when it's a relationship like with a horse or a human, and there's that connection and there's that sense of purpose, you said it. And not only did you lose Vinny, but you lost what you thought your identity was at the time with him.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that rebuilding process doesn't have a timeline.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It is
That's something you have to kind of learn in the moment. It doesn't have a timeline. I struggled with that for a long time. Like right now, I have to get back into it and pick up where I left off, but you can't, and that's okay.
You can't, and it is okay. There's most of the world, at least in the States, knows of the Kubler-Ross model of grief, which, is the stages of acceptance and denial and bartering, all those pieces. But there's another viewpoint put out by a man by the name of Worden, Wordn, and he refers to the process of grief in an acronym called TEAR, TEAR. And in that acronym is this idea that there are aspects under each of those letters that come together back and forth and more of a mosaic of grief. And some of it is acknowledging that there is the loss of the loved one or the identity or the experience, and then there's the acceptance of that process while also the grief part of I'm not happy. I feel empty. I don't know what's next. And
Mm-hmm.
as you kind of go through the acknowledging and the acceptance and the even sometimes the anger, the sadness, the bartering, you eventually make meaning. And in that meaning making, you are bringing what was into what is now to carry it into the future. And that is
Mm-hmm.
where the healing really starts to be felt. Like I can still miss, I can still long for, I can still want what was, but I'm also finding a way for that experience to have purpose in this current moment. And
Yes.
it
Yeah.
sounds like as Zillow was doing those liberty circles around you, that there was, I'm almost picturing like a wreath or like that is woven together. And there was some Zillow with some of what you had with Vinny that got you to that place to be able to offer this to Zillow. And now it continues forward.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So in your work with Zillow in the last, you said 2 years?
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yeah. Two
what
and a
has
half.
2.5. Yeah, what has that been like? Where have you grown? Where has Zillow grown?
So he's amazing. He is now my main Liberty performance horse, and we did decide to keep Zillow as an ambassador for the rescue. So he does live permanently at the rescue and goes around to different outreach and education events, mainly performing at Liberty. I do also ride Zillow because
Oh,
I
you
find
do?
that, yeah, I do. I do. I've found that providing horses with that balance of, when you're doing Liberty performance work, different, trick work, it's a lot of mental stimulation and
Mhm.
you're asking a lot of them mentally. And it's a lot of tight circles, it's a lot of tight movements. And I found that they seem to do best and are happiest when they also have another aspect to their career, to their job, that they can work more out. They can move out a little bit more than they can on the smaller Liberty circles. And I can overall just give them a little bit more balance in their life, having different, a little bit less mental, like it's really like mentally taxing, not taxing, but because they do enjoy it. But, when they get to a performance level, there's a lot of really intricate, minute details, like very small cues that they have to really be on it the whole time. And going back to something like just riding for pleasure, riding around the ring, riding around the farm, going on trail rides can just be really beneficial to them.
Yeah. Yeah. And another way to nurture the relationship, right?
Yes. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So with like Kodiak, I think about it almost in the opposite way, in that his primary work is in the arena, under saddle, and that's where he's building up his fitness. He's building up his like ability to carry a rider well. Not that we have like any aspiration for it to look a certain way, but that's just like we're developing him with those kind of dressage foundations from a biomechanics perspective. But I mentally am like, okay, like when are we riding outside of the arena? When are we doing some liberty work in the round pen? When are we just like hand grazing and hand walking? Because of we all need balance. Like if we do the same thing over and over again with our, partners in life, it becomes boring. We take vacations, like we go out to dinner, we go for walks, like we do different things with the people we're in relationship with. And I often think the horses need that just as much.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. So what is in your current work at Day's End? Tell us a little bit more about that. Like what does a week at a glance kind of look like?
It's a little bit of everything sometimes, it feels like. So I some of what I do is, obviously, I train horses, so I'm out there working with horses. Typically, I have around 8 horses on my plate at any given time that I'm working with. Then I also assist with the adoption appointments. So for any horse that I'm working with, I perform those adoption appointments. I'm in communication and, do that initial communication with the potential adopters. I deliver horses to their adoptive homes. I also assist with impounds. So when animal control calls us, I am part of that team that goes out and actually, assists animal control and gets the horses off the property. I also am able to use some of my business and communications schooling in some social media that I do. So I actually run our TikTok page.
Oh, awesome.
And then I do probably about 50% of our content gathering for the other social media platforms as well. I also keep our website horse pages up to date. So I'm the one doing all the marketing for the adoptable horses on different platforms, as well as keeping the website up to date on that as well.
That's awesome. So you are wearing many hats. Your
Many
degree and your experience are both contributing. How do you, with wearing all those hats, and then also the nature of the impound experience and what you see in terms of horses coming in, how do you take care of your own mental health?
Oh, so I know you mentioned in your initial questions, like how do you find balance in your
Yeah.
professional life? And I feel like I'm not the best person to be asking that question to, because I definitely struggle myself with
Yeah.
maintaining a work-life balance. I try to make sure that I'm going back to where is my identity in, and going through, uh, you know, grief like Vinny's passing does make you realize that you have to go back and make sure you know where your identity lies, and it's in something much bigger and stronger than
Mhm.
this world. And I try to keep root in that
Yeah.
and make sure I'm taking care of myself and finding time for myself outside of horses, that I'm finding joy outside of horses, that I'm living life outside of horses, because they do consume your life. It's a lot. And there's this thought that any horse professional has to be giving 24/7 in order to make it in the industry. It's a very niche, difficult industry to make it into because it's so skills based, right? And once you're in it, it sometimes feels like you have to keep fighting and fighting and fighting to stay where you are, and you have to continue growing. You have to continue developing yourself and getting better and better. And sometimes it feels like if you're not growing, you're failing, and that's doesn't have to be the case. So it's definitely a process and something that I'm still working on, but I try.
It's hard. It's hard. I appreciate your honesty, right? Like work-life balance, if people mastered it, there wouldn't be so many books out about it, and people wouldn't be like struggling with burnout and seeking out coaches and therapists to figure out how to get their life on track, because it is hard. And it's hard when, I mean, maybe I'm biased, but I feel like it's especially hard in the horse industry because your project, your work is not only about you, it's about this living creature that still needs to be fed and turned out and exercised, and right, so you end up being sacrificial. Is very similar to motherhood. I mean, I have 4 children that are grown, but the same thing, like you have to continue to show up even when you don't want to,
Sure. Yeah.
right? And then being able to say, no, I can pull back right now and have a little space for myself. I can go for a walk, or I can meet a friend, or nope, I need to have that. I mean, as a therapist, we're encouraged to be in our own therapy to make sure that whatever we're dealing with in life doesn't transfer over to our clients. So I have a weekly therapy appointment, and I would love to be able to say, I have a weekly therapy appointment and then I can go back to work, but I'm activated after that. I'm dealing with my own stuff. So I need to have margin around that so I can not show up exhausted or overwhelmed before I meet with a client. And I would imagine with what you're doing as an equine professional in the rescue industry, I think that there's a lot of parallels to working with humans and horses, in that the work takes a little bit more on the heart and the mind than
Mm,
another job.
yeah. Yeah. No, it can be a lot. And I think, when you're working with these horrible neglect and abuse cases, you uh, you want to put blame on something. I
Yes.
think when you're seeing animals in distress, it's very easy to attack something or put blame
Yes.
on something. And I think what I've loved about working with Days End is that we're not we're compassionate, uh, and in our work, what we're there for, like when we go on these impounds, we're there for the horses, but we're not putting blame. Like that's not our role, that's not our job.
Mhm.
And typically 9 times out of 10, when I go to assist with these animal cruelty cases, there are hurting humans involved.
Yes.
There's always a people component to these
Yeah.
cases that are struggling. And, there you have to have compassion for people if you want to
Mhm.
work in this kind of industry as well. I think
Yeah.
a lot of people get into this industry working with animals because they're like, oh, well, I don't want to work with people. But unfortunately, that's not really the case. I think if you don't want to work with people, don't come into the
Yeah.
horse industry, because you're going to need to work with people.
Yes. Yes. No, I 100% agree on a number of levels. And ironically, yesterday, I just received the newsletter from Days End Farm.
Mhm.
And, what you're saying, I can say is what I read. There were 2 cases, and I can't remember the names, Quigley, and
Mhm.
you probably wrote the newsletter.
No, no, no. Our
Um,
development team did a great job with the with the
yeah,
with the newsletter.
but
I think it
there
was Quigley, and there was another larger case that I think they included in there too.
yeah, and in both, I really thought there was a lot of dignity given to the circumstances that the humans found themselves in.
Mhm.
You guys went in and your concern is the horses, but it was very clear in reading the newsletter that there were humans that were hurting and needing care and attention in that situation, and that was a contributing factor, if not the main factor, for why the horses ended up in the situation that they're in. And so um, I was thinking about that, and I was thinking about the in your role in the mental health industry, we call it secondary trauma. So when we hear a
Mm.
person's abuse situation or a traumatic story and we feel it for them, especially as we develop a relationship with that client, it becomes a form of secondary trauma because we're being exposed to this over and over again, right? And
Mhm.
it is hard to not become hardened. There was a phase in which I was working with women who were all in situations with either a partner or a spouse that was emotionally abusive and displayed character traits of narcissistic abuse. And these were women that were kind of trapped and stuck in these roles. And I found myself starting to say some pretty harsh things at the end of the day about men and what I wanted to do to them. Right. And my husband's like, when do I hit that? When do you say that about me? I was like, oh, I need to deal with this. Like it was not conscious, but there was a building up of anger and frustration at the way things are and the powerlessness I felt, that I realized, like, when he said that, I was like, oh, we need to process this a little bit. In
Mhm.
therapy, my relationship with God, I had to go before God and ask for his forgiveness for thinking that way about people and ask him to give me his heart of compassion and empathy for the broken, because I wasn't in that stage. I wonder
Yeah.
if you've had that kind of struggle.
Yeah, I definitely uh, can relate to the secondary trauma and kind of dissociating a bit from what we're looking at and what we're doing. And
Mhm.
I think a lot of times I find myself feeling a little bit cold or just stone because
Mhm.
I feel like I should be reacting to things that I'm not reacting to because it's just I see it all the time and it's what I'm
Mhm.
used to, and it doesn't make it any less hard. I think sometimes I have a tendency to put everything that I have in a couple of horses. So like Zillow and my two personal horses, I
Mhm.
put everything into, and it's a relationship on a bit of a more intimate level
Mhm.
so that everything else I can stay surface level. And I don't know if that's the right answer or not, or if that's
Mhm.
good or bad. I don't know. Um, but sometimes I guess it does enable us to do our jobs a bit,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
you have to be able to put up a little bit of a wall, a little bit of a boundary there,
Yeah.
while still being compassionate and making sure you're keeping that really alive and there
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's hard. That's a hard topic. We've had a couple compassion fatigue workshops
Mhm. Mhm.
at day's end, specifically for all of our staff because it's
Yeah.
something that is very relevant in what we do and making sure that we're not getting burnt out, that we're not, dissociating and, forgetting why we are there in the first place, right?
Yeah. 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 I think it's really important. And I think, dissociation sometimes has a bum rap in our culture. Like, oh, I'm so dissociated. I'm so checked out. I'm so, like, shut down. But there is a healthy version of dissociation in that
Mm.
I rather refer to it as a container. Like, there
Mm.
is a boundary of, like, this. I can use my gifts and my talents and my skills to serve this, and also hold a boundary space on how emotionally deep I let this feel on the inside of my body.
Mm-hmm.
so that I can be here and hold space, but I'm visually creating a place to put this aside. And then, in when we do EMDR processing, one of the main tools we use is a container exercise, because there are times that we will process a painful situation in a therapy session and not finish it. And the hour ends and the client has to leave. And so we use this container that they have visualized ahead of time to
Mm-hmm.
imagine taking this emotion and this experience, and you put it inside this box that closes, whatever your box looks like. Mine's a storage unit. Um, and and you leave it there. It's not a trash bin. It's not a recycling, compact thing in the kitchen disposal. You do have to come back to it at some point and say, I'm going to deal with how I feel about this. But in this moment, I just need to kind of put this over here and
Mm-hmm.
and go to the part of my life that I can show up fully present in, which is, like you said, with Zillow and with your two horses.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
the challenge is if we never go back to that container and we just let that build and
Yeah.
build and build. And
Yes.
that's right. That's where
Yeah.
the anger starts to take in up space, and the bitterness and the resentment and the hardness.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's that's
Well,
when
and
we know.
you wanna make sure you're still opening up your heart to others too,
Yes.
right? Like I can't forget about all the other horses that I'm working with just because it's hard to open up
Yes.
myself to every single one of them. I do need to open up and be able to give myself fully to them just as much as
Yeah.
like Zillow and my personal horses. So no, it's hard. That's hard.
It is hard. It is hard. One thing, and I'll share this with you and whoever else is out there in this kind of similar role of multiple horses, is I have given myself like a mental picture of I when I work with the horses that are not my own, I love them in the moment. And I just think about like the time that I'm with them is I love pink. So I picture like this pink cloud of love surrounding them and surrounding me while we're together. And that if I pour out that authentic love when I'm with them, then when I'm not with them, some of it will stay. Because what I find is I end up feeling like, oh, I really want to go spend time with, let's say Teddy at the farm, and work with him a little bit in the round pen and help him develop this way. I really want to go work with Finn. Oh, actually, I would like a little bit more time with this client, and I just can't. Like, there is a limited ability to my capacity and my
Mhm.
time, and so I'm really working personally on 100% present in the moment and 100% okay when we're not together.
Yeah. No, that's a great way. That's a great way to look at it.
Yeah, yeah, that there, because there's otherwise we'll be going forever and ever.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I'm looking at the time, and we're gonna be coming into the end of this recording. I would love to know, is there anything that we haven't touched upon from all the questions that I had shared with you that you feel like, oh, I really want to talk about this one piece?
I think honestly, I know the one thing that I did underline in what I wanted to share was um, you asked about what you're really passionate about
Yeah,
and
yeah,
what you wanted to share that you were passionate about. And I wanted to make sure I could share that just because you're working with a horse at Liberty doesn't mean that you're giving them a choice, right?
right,
And
right,
I think it's really important to share that with, Liberty work has become so big and so popular in the past maybe 10 or so years. And if the horse cannot say no, do they ever really say yes?
right,
And that concept of making sure you're paying attention to when you're working with your horses, are you honestly giving them the ability to say no, or are you uh, just kind of are you is there force involved? What is reinforcing the horse to stay with you? And I think it's important too when you're looking at any kind of liberty work. Why is that horse staying, and what is motivating that horse? What is reinforcing that horse? And is that reinforcement, or are they avoiding something unpleasant? Because unfortunately, that is
Mhm.
an aspect of liberty work. And uh, in my opinion, liberty means freedom and
Yes.
being given a choice and being okay with the horse having a voice and being able
Mhm.
to communicate and say no. So I think I just wanted to share
Mhm.
that yeah, liberty is about choice. And when I'm working with my horses at Liberty, the reason why I use positive reinforcement is that it allows that back and forth communication, and it allows that more so of a choice in my horses actually making that choice to stay with me because they're looking forward and are motivated to be
Mhm.
there. They're
Yes.
not avoiding something aversive
Yes.
to
Yes.
stay.
Yeah. Yeah. And yet, are there times that you also like using that word aversive and thinking about behavior modification and that quad? Are there times that you find it's helpful to use that aversive response to communicate in the training part of it?
There, I am big on balancing positive and negative reinforcement. I think if you look at a lot of positive or negative
Yeah.
reinforcement trainers, you see like one or the other, and it's
Mhm.
hard to kind of mesh the two. What I've
Yes.
found, if you look at that learning quadrant, you have the positive and negative reinforcement, but you also have the positive and
Yeah.
negative punishment. And I have found personally through my training journey that if you can find a nice balance of positive
Mhm.
and negative reinforcement, which is dependent on the horse
Yes.
individual learning style, that you are less likely to delve into punishment at all. And that
Right.
I think should be our goal.
100%. I couldn't have said it better. I mean, that's my approach when I'm working with the horses, right? Like
Yeah.
when when I'm working with a client in the equine assisted session, it's at oftentimes at Liberty. Sometimes it's on a line and we're doing other things and working on leadership. But the turn, we ask for connection when we do it through the hind end. Like,
Mm-hmm.
where, I'm teaching clients how to create some pressure and attention on the hind end and asking that
Mm-hmm.
horse to turn in. That their turn in is not always connection. Their turn in sometimes is the avoidance of the pressure that they're perceiving as negative, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so, can we develop the skill of how to raise pressure and lower pressure to figure out how the horse communicates what is too much, what is too little? But then, rather than I'm making this horse do this for me, can you be inviting the horse to find safety and comfort with you?
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
And so I'm always kind of playing with this. Why are they doing it? What are
Sure.
they
Yeah.
avoiding versus what are they choosing? I think is really,
Yeah.
really important.
Yeah. And I think it's important too to remember that choice can also be time, right? So
Mhm.
uh, being able to recognize where to stop and where to just stay and hang out with that energy or with that pressure
Mhm.
is important to make sure you're staying below threshold, but you're at that place where you're saying, I really need you to be here.
Yes.
And I think I kind of compare it a little bit to if you're only using positive reinforcement, sometimes I kind of, and you're always listening and 100%, like if the horse says no, you're done, right? Is if you invite a friend to a party and they say no, and you're like, okay, that's not a big deal, whatever. You can say no, we won't go to the party tonight. Or if you invite your friend to a party and they say no, and you say, but please, can you come to the party with me? Please. I really want you to come to the party with me. I need a friend at this party. It's a
Mhm.
little bit different, right? Like, and it's not a begging. It's a little bit
Mhm.
different from horse and human relationship, but there's still that urge to want the yes, right?
Yes. Yes.
And that's important too, is we want the horse to say yes. So how can we add something to the relationship to
Mhm.
create a horse that wants to say yes?
Yes. Yeah, yeah. Warwick Schiller talks about that quite a bit, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
we want to offer the yes, and I think there's so many nuanced ways that we can do this if we're willing to look at the horse that's in front of us at the time and look at
Mm-hmm.
who we are and how we're showing up at the time and looking at what's happening in the environment at the time and what makes this the most enjoyable, the safest, the most engaged
Mm-hmm.
relationship in this moment is so, so very important.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. I was demonstrating this with a client yesterday who was in from out of state for the week, and we've been working with multiple horses in the sessions. She is a horsewoman, so it's not just a mental health experience for her. It's also developing this like connected horsemanship way of
Mm-hmm.
being. And we were working with a particular horse captain who was way more interested in the grass. And in the early years of my training, I would never want to be in a round pen with grass. Like it was just too much. Now I like love it because it's real proof in the pudding. If they will just hang out with me and grass is not as important as just hanging, I'm like, yes,
Yeah.
we've accomplished something. And so captain was not really offering super connection with attachment. And so I shifted and I said, well, we're going to do a little detachment. I'm going to ask him to go. And so in the language of natural lifemanship, which is how I was trained from that equine therapy perspective, detachment is the liberty circle, essentially. And so I asked him to go around, and he kept turning and wanting to come in, and turning and wanting to come in. And I was like, hey, was that what I was asking? But that's what he's asking. So I made this decision of like, no, 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 yes, before he asked again. And then that's what I ended it on. Like, I can ask you, you can ask me. I'm noticing that you're asking, and so how quickly can I say yes to that without it
Mm.
just that he's going and avoiding the part that he's uncomfortable with.
Yeah.
And then he was like with me. I dropped the stick. He was
Yeah.
like totally like, where are we going? What are we doing? Huh. And he did his thing, which he and I have history of this just from being in a field together for a long time with working with another horse, where he sticks his muzzle right into my ear and my face and like deep inhales and breath. And we just had this like intimate moment together. And that's how we ended. Well, it
Yeah.
almost
That's
felt
great.
like, yeah, it just felt like this. Oh, there you are, Lise.
Yeah.
Like, there we are. Oh, it was really,
Yeah. That's very cool. Very
yeah,
special.
yeah. And so it's a art and a science. It sounds like you and I are on a
Mm-hmm.
very similar page in the how do we learn? How do we grow? How do we
Yeah.
help?
Yeah.
How do we also take care of ourselves? It's a process.
Yeah. No, that's one of my favorite quotes is horsemanship is a science with the end goal of becoming an art.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. I often refer to it. It's both. There's formula and there's foundation, but
Hmm.
there is also interpretation and application, and they're different.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, why don't you let us know where we can find you and your work? Um, yeah.
Yeah, so if you guys want to learn more about Days on Farm Horse Rescue and our mission and how you can get involved, you can visit defhr.org. You can also follow us on social media at Facebook, just our name.
Mm,
Instagram, our handle is the number 4 and the horses, so for the
mm,
horses. And then TikTok is Days on Farm Horse Rescue.
that is awesome. And you definitely are looking for donations because the the organization runs on that.
Yes.
You're looking for manpower, so anybody that's in Maryland who would want to join in
Yep, we're
and
always
serve,
looking for volunteers. Yeah.
always looking for
Yeah.
volunteers. And then if somebody wanted you to come and do a demonstration, is that something that you do? How far do you travel?
Yeah, you're absolutely welcome to reach out to our office and ask for me for different demonstrations if you're looking for, performances or demonstrations at different events in the area. We'll travel for as long as far as we can. Obviously, we're going to Texas, coming back from Texas right now. No, we won't go that far. But
Yeah.
no, always looking for different opportunities to showcase the power of the rescue horse. So definitely reach out for that. And we are also, myself and our head trainer, Sarah Strauss, are hosting a clinic series this year. So we're hosting clinics at our farm in Maryland once a month. So if anyone's interested in getting hands-on with some of this Liberty work, we're even offering, if you do not have the ability to bring a horse, you are welcome to borrow one of our rescue horses at Day's End to learn alongside with. So that is an option as well if you're interested.
Oh, that is very cool. Awesome. So on the closing note, what do you think it means to be a liberated equestrian?
Oh, you know what? I had to Google liberated to really get a full grasp of what that means. And I think I have to go to what we first talked about today of being present. Like a liberated equestrian means being present with the horse that you're working with and being fully there with your horse and fully connected in the moment.
That is awesome. I love that. Absolutely. Free of everything else to be present right where we're at in that moment.
Yes.
Well, Leigha, thank you so much for stopping off on your Texas trip to connect for this podcast. And I'm glad that the connection was strong enough to hear you the whole time. We'll have a few pixeled out moments, but I think that everybody can endure that.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Good. Thank you for tuning in to the Liberated Equestrian Podcast. I'm so grateful to have you as a part of this community. If you loved today's episode, make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your fellow equestrians. For more information and ongoing support, visit theliberatedequestrian.us, where you'll find show notes and resources to help you become a liberated equestrian. The Liberated Equestrian Podcast is intended for informational and educational purposes only. The content shared in each episode, including discussions, interviews, and advice, reflects the personal opinions and professional insights of the host and guest. The information provided on this podcast is not a substitute for professional mental health care, counseling, or therapy. Listeners should consult a licensed healthcare professional for specific advice regarding their personal situations. Reliance on any information provided by this podcast is solely at the listener's discretion and risk. While every effort is made to provide accurate and up-to-date information, neither Lisa Pulliam nor the Liberated Equestrian Podcast assumes any responsibilities for errors, omissions, or outcomes resulting from the use of this information. By listening to this podcast, you agree that neither the host, guest, or affiliated party shall be held liable for any damages, loss, or harm arising from the use or misuse of the information presented. If you are experiencing a mental health emergency, please seek immediate assistance from a qualified healthcare provider or call your emergency services in your area. Thank you for listening to the Liberated Equestrian Podcast.